Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, it's been some huge trades this year for some young superstars in their prime. And it got me thinking, what are the biggest trades in Grizzlies franchise history? I got some answers. We're going to talk about that, Santi in the EuroBasket, and much more coming here right now on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis, Tennessee. And you know what day of the week it is. It's Friday. So we got to get down on Friday. Shout out to my co-host, Joe Monax, as I go solo on today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by none other than Gametime. Listen up. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at Gametime. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you know, what's understood don't got to be explained if you're looking to the camera right now. But if you're listening on any of our listening platforms, let me make it loud and clear for you. Go, Pack, go. All right, I won't. I know we got some Cowboy fans in the Grizzlies, so I won't make too many football jokes and things like that over the course of this episode. But there was a huge trade in the NFL on yesterday for those who may not be big NFL fans or whatever the case may be. But if you are, you already know what I'm talking about. The Green Bay Packers acquired Micah Parsons, arguably one of the best defensive players in the league, best defense player in the NFC, from the Dallas Cowboys. And it was a mega trade. And this trade adds on to, we saw Luka Doncic getting traded, earlier this year, right? And that was another one. It actually had something to do with Dallas as well that people didn't see coming. And then even to a smaller degree on a local level, the Desmond Bane trade here in Memphis, a guy that was kind of a core player. Just localizing it. Desmond Bane ain't on the level of those two dudes, but we're localizing it a little bit. But it got me thinking, what are the biggest trades in Grizzlies franchise history? There are a few that come to mind, and this was pretty easy exercise for me. And we're going to talk about that in the first segment. Then, of course, we're going to get into, Santi Aldama playing in the EuroBasket. He played his first game. We're going to talk about that in the second segment. Then we're going to talk about a little bit more about the Grizzlies' current roster in the third segment of today's show. But the top three trades to me are all moves that had major significance for Memphis, and where as a Packers fan, there's the tie-in in the significance of trading for high caliber talent with the Grizzlies is the fact that these are two places. And look, you say what you want, like the Grizzlies haven't been a marquee free agency destination over the years. Whether that be because, the Grizzlies don't want to go out and spend a bunch of money, whether that be because guys are more interested in playing in other places. Whatever the case may be, the Grizzlies haven't been a place where they go out and sign these super, marquee free agents over the course of the years. But how do you counter that? You trade for guys. You trade for guys who you believe can be star caliber players. And that's what the Packers did in this case. Go out and get a Micah Parsons. And that's what the Grizzlies have done several times over the course of their history. Now let's get into it without further ado. Top three trades to me in Grizzlies franchise history. As always, make sure you guys like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Would love to get your comments on this list. Let me know you guys' list as well. But the first one that I want to mention coming in for me at number 3 is the most recent one. Desmond Bane to the Magic in terms of shock, in terms of when it happened, in terms of what the Grizzlies got for it. This is one of those trades where you said, if you would have woke up in the morning and someone had told you Grizzlies are trading Desmond Bane, you're probably like, what? But then, you realize, oh, there's going to be, a gluttony of first round picks included. You're going to get Kentavious Caldwell, put one of those first round picks you're going to be able to flip and move up in the draft and get Cedric Coward. You might convince a few more fans after you let them know the capital. But this one, the verdict is still, we don't know yet, right? But no matter what happens with these first round picks, what they turn into, I think it will be something that you look back on and say, man, to get 4 first round picks, to be able to move up and acquire a talent like Cedric Coward, that's an opportunity that you really couldn't pass up on. But this is probably the boldest one, of the 3 trades. That's why this one makes the list for me. This is probably the boldest one that the Grizzlies made because, Desmond Bane, I've talked about it on here. We've heard other players talk about it, where Gigi Jackson basically said Desmond Bane's their leader. His locker room voice is one that's going to be missed. Desmond Bane was one of those guys that would get in each player's face and say exactly how he felt, and players would listen because he has the credentials. He's still young in his NBA career, but Desmond Bane really became that voice for the Grizzlies. Moving on next, number 2 for me is Zach Randolph for Quentin Richardson. This is number 1 for a lot of people, and that's fine because this is the deal in terms of if you're talking about the robbery type deals, right? Quentin Richardson never even suited up for the Grizzlies, never even played a game for the Grizzlies, but the Grizzlies were able to get Zach Randolph from the Clippers, and Zach Randolph turned into one of the greatest Grizzlies in franchise history. We now see, his number is hanging up in FedEx Forum, and of course, he had as big of an impact on the grit and grind era as anyone else in franchise history. The scoring, the offensive rebounding, while standing on his tippy toes, it looked like at times. The mid-range shooting, and just the person. Like, to me, it's the person, because I was a teenager during those years of the grit and grind era. Joe hates when I mention that stuff, so maybe I can get away with it on a solo episode today. But I remember, seeing Zach Randolph physically in the community, not just at the big charity events and things like that, but at a local basketball game, right at a local high school, just showing his face around the community, not to come there and do anything in particular, but just to hang out. And that stands out because there aren't too many players that come to mind when you think of guys who really kind of engraved themselves in the community like that. Tony Allen is one. You could say the same thing, about a few other guys as well. But Zach Randolph has really stood out in that way, the way he has connected with the Memphis community, what he has done on the basketball floor, and what he continues to do, in Memphis with his record label and, helping a lot of guys in the Memphis community get opportunities, through that. And he continues to support the Grizzlies, as well. So Zach Randolph, getting him in that trade for a guy who didn't even suit up. Quentin Richardson didn't even, I just can't emphasize that enough. That's number 2. That's probably the biggest robbery. But when you factor in all of it, right? With Desmond Bane trade, we talked about basically, the guts, the boldness it took them to pull out that trade. With our number 1 trade, you got the boldness, and then you got the other part of it too, where it wasn't a robbery I think the Zach Randolph trade was, but it was one where you felt like this better work, and it did. And that's Pau Gasol, the first top pick who played with the Grizzlies at the time, who was the franchise player, being traded away for his younger brother, Marc Gasol. Number 1 trade in Grizzlies franchise history, in my opinion. And not just because of the fact that, the Grizzlies got this young, talented prospect in Marc Gasol back, but it's all the storylines. Marc Gasol grew up, right? He grew up in Spain, but he moved to Memphis, in his teenage years because his big brother Pau Gasol, was playing here, and he played in Memphis. So there was already that familiarity, that relatability to the city of Memphis that he didn't have in any other city in America. Marc Gasol already had that in Memphis. And then the rest of the trade, there was Kwame Brown, Javaris Critton, Aaron McKee. Shout out to Aaron McKee. I covered him out when I was in Philly when he was a head coach at Temple. But shout out Aaron McKee, And two future first round picks, second round picks. All of this was acquired in that trade, but none of it was bigger than Marc Gasol. And if it would have just been a straight up Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol swap, nobody would be complaining about that one. Just like Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol came in, had an immediate impact on the future of Grizzlies basketball for the foreseeable future. And then when, as he got older, as Zach Randolph came in, Tony Allen came in, they really helped set that defensive foundation. Marc Gasol goes on to win Defensive Player of the Year. And he's another guy who now is continued to be, a pillar for Memphis so many years later. So Marc Gasol for Pau Gasol. I mean, that took some, that took some guts, trading away Pau Gasol to the Lakers. He goes on to win championships, and the Grizzlies get Marc Gasol, who becomes, a franchise legend, another guy whose jersey is hanging in the rafters. Honorable mention, because we got to throw an honorable mention in there. I won't talk about it too much, just going to throw an honorable mention in there. Rudy Gay for Shane Battier. Shane Battier was a guy who played with Pau Gasol, terrific defender. The Grizzlies took that risk. They go get this young guy, Rudy Gay, and Rudy Gay is a kind of a puzzling one because he didn't really get to see out the future of the grit and grind era, right? We didn't really get to see Rudy Gay in there, but a lot of, personally, and this is debatable. This is where it's good to have Joe Molinax on the episodes because he lived it a little bit closer than me. He was covering this, but Rudy Gay, it felt like, at the time, when we saw the grit and grind era over the years, the scoring, the athleticism, the athletes, some of the things that eventually became problems with the grit and grind era were things that Rudy Gay actually was good at. They just really, kind of didn't find that three that really stuck in between the core four guys. And Rudy Gay was supposed to be that guy. So Rudy Gay for Shane Battier is up there for me because he traded Shane Battier. He ended up getting Rudy Gay, who carried the franchise for a little bit of time there, and still is one of the best players in Grizzlies franchise history. I always say Rudy Gay deserves his flowers for what he meant to Memphis. Santi Aldama is getting his flowers right now in the EuroBasket. He played his first game against Georgia. We're going to talk about that next here coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get into that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Gametime. College football is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than the energy of tailgates and being in the stands with your fellow fans. The only downside is trying to get tickets. It's so many queues, hidden fees, and prices that just jump at checkout when you think you got one number, then a whole nother number pops up. But that's why I use Gametime, because that app gives you the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. No surprise fees. Simple. What you see is what you'll pay. And look, I'm going to Gametime right now. I'm looking at the Tennessee football schedule. I got to go see my Vols this year. I mean, the basketball season always makes it hard, but I'm going to find a couple of days in there where I can slip out, go to Knoxville on a Saturday, get back here before a game on a Monday. I'm going to find me a day where that works out. And when I do, I'm going to go through Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets, college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Gametime today. Make sure you go take advantage of that opportunity. Now, over at Gametime.com. The Memphis Grizzlies aren't playing basketball just yet, but Santi Aldama is on the basketball floor. Santi Aldama is participating in the EuroBasket. This is not a surprise. We've talked about this leading up in the leading weeks. They played some exhibition games, but they played their first group play game, Spain did, in the EuroBasket. And it's kind of fitting that we're talking about. Shout out to the Spanish listeners out there. I know we got some listeners out in Spain. Shout out to the listeners in Spain because we talked about Matt with Powell, we talked about Marc Gasol, and now we're talking about Santi Aldama. But it wasn't a good showing for Spain. It was an upset, and Spain is kind of, fell off. They're not a top 10, not a top 10 FIBA basketball team, at least in the eyes of many people at this point. But I saw that they're not even ranked top 10 in the EuroBasket. in Europe because of, the rise of, Slovenia with Luka, Serbia, and so many other, countries, Germany with the talent that they've had come in as of late. So many other really talented countries over there. Spain has kind of fallen off, which is a surprise because Spain was the biggest threat to the United States for it felt like a 10-year period. But with that being said, Santi Aldama has kind of stepped in now as the guy for Spain. He's the only current NBA player on that roster. There are a couple other guys, notably the Hernan Gomez brothers. People should be, sort of familiar with their Willie Hernan Gomez, Juancho Hernan Gomez, two guys who played minutes in the NBA. Juancho is also known for his role, in the Adam Sandler film with Anthony Edwards. I'm blanking on the name right now, but it'll come to me later. But anyways, Santi Aldama, first game in a EuroBasket, won. Spain lost 83-69. So really wasn't some close upset. Georgia put it on Spain, and it kind of goes to the point where we were saying earlier about Spain is kind of going through a rough change right now. But if you're a Grizzlies fan, it's good. It's good in a way because Santi has the keys, and it's going to be good for him to be that leader, to be that guy who basically Spain is saying, hey, you got to take us back to where we were. You have to be the guy who's going to lead us back to those heights. And, Santi wants that pressure. Santi has said to me and other media members in Memphis, we're going to beat Team USA and things like that. So right now, that doesn't look like the case. But anyways, how did Santi play? I know that's what everyone wants to know at this point. Santi didn't have a great game, just like his team didn't have a great game. Santi shot 5 of 15 from the field. It's not good. 2 of 10 on three-pointers. That was most of it. 2 of 10 on three-pointers. Take away the threes. He was 3 of 5 inside the arc. But again, 2 of 10 on three-pointers. 12 points for Santi. Didn't really have a standout game as a rebounder either. I think he finished with 3 rebounds, all defensive rebounds. So not a great game for Santi. Not a great game for Spain. But he has 4 more group play games. We'll continue to monitor how Santi Aldama plays in the group setting. I'm expecting more. We need to see more. He's going to go against some really talented bigs, some bigs that are NBA quality and some bigs that are better than the ones that Georgia has over there. So we'll continue to monitor, the way that Santi plays over the course of the EuroBasket as well. We got another point to make too. I got one more point I want to make on Santi before I get to the next point. Remember that we have an important request for all our Locked On listeners. Locked On wants to hear you. So we've put together a survey to learn more about listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. So thank you for helping us out. Make sure you go take advantage of that now and potentially win one of those $100 Amazon gift cards. But we got one more point to make about Santi Aldama before we move on. And this is a big one, for me at least. I'm tired of Santi Aldama settling. No more settling for three-pointers. I want to see Santi shoot a bunch of threes because he's good at it. He's confident in it. But if it ain't falling, Santi is better inside the arc than many people think. And I say that many people think because when you watch Santi score inside for a 6'10", 6'11" guy, there's a lot of finesse to it, right? It doesn't look forceful. It doesn't look like Stromile, Swift, or even Zach Randolph to a different degree with the physical, toughness. You see those guys finishing around the rim with the authority, and all these different type of strong adjectives you could use. But with Santi, it's more finesse, it feels like. He's falling back sometimes and all of that. But at the end of the day, a lot of things can lie. Numbers don't. Numbers ain't going to lie. And with Santi, if you look at his shot chart from last season on Shot Creator, you'll notice in the paint, it's all green. That is his most efficient, at least from a field goal percentage standpoint, area on the basketball floor. Everywhere else on the floor is yellow. He's around roughly league average. That top of the key 3-point shot, left wing, right wing. We saw Santi take that 3-point shot a bunch of times. Shot creator tracked him for 232 3-pointers in that area where he made 84, which is roughly 36.2%. A league average is 35.3%. So a little bit above league average. Santi was fine there. I'm not complaining. Still shoot a bunch of 3-pointers. Shot well from the corners as well. But guess what? Inside the arc, if you go to the restricted area, Santi, 73.1% inside the restricted circle. League average was 66.4%. You go inside the paint area and non-restricted area shots. These are areas pretty much below the free throw line, but not quite in the circle. Santi was 49.3% from the field. League average, 44.4%. So above league average, very efficient in those areas. Santi is capable. He can dribble. He's comfortable driving. He can play make. We've seen the flashy passes where sometimes you go, ooh, and then other times you go, what is Santi doing, man? Coach, take him out the game. Well, why did he just throw a behind the back pass? And all he had to do is dump it off to the guy in front of him, 2 easy points. So you get the best of both worlds there. But at the end of the day, that first game, I'm very intrigued to see how Santi Aldama responds. Because this is kind of similar to sometimes what we see with Santi on the Grizzlies. He has those games where he falls in love with the 3-pointer, and then you look up, I'm like, man, Santi, you were 3 or 5 on twos. Shot 60% on 2-point shots, but you end up shooting 5 of 15, 33% overall in the game. The math ain't mathing, as the young people like to say. So I want to see Santi, get some of that more that mean streak, right? The 3-pointer ain't falling. I'm 6'11". I can put the ball on the floor. These guys ain't skilled as me. I'm about to get to it. Like, I want to see that. I want to see that from Santi. But speaking of Santi, Santi's one of the power forwards on the Grizzlies roster, right? He's a power forward that the Grizzlies are going to be depending on this upcoming season. Jaren Jackson Jr. is in that conversation as well. But who else? Who else is a power forward on the Grizzlies roster that they can depend on? Let's talk about that coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get into that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with the can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Look, why do I like using FanDuel? It's so many reasons. Number one reason for me is probably the same game parlays. I'm excited for football season because you go in the NFL and you say, I want to bet this player to rush for 40 yards. I want to bet this player to pass for 200 yards. I want to bet this player to score a touchdown. Anytime touchdown bets are money. Trust me. And look, go take advantage of that over right now at FanDuel.com. So are you ready today? Are you ready to play? If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at FanDuel. We talked about Santi Aldama, right? And he's going to be an important power forward for the Memphis Grizzlies this upcoming season. Jaren Jackson's also going to be an important power forward for the Grizzlies. With those two, you really don't have to worry about the power forward position much, hopefully, over the course of the NBA season. But we got to throw a but in there because right now, Jaren Jackson Jr. is in the recovery stage, recovering from an injury. We talked about the fact we're roughly 3 to 4 weeks away from getting some type of update on where Jaren Jackson Jr. is. When that update comes, we'll have better clarity on the idea of Jaren Jackson Jr. being ready for the start of the season, Jaren Jackson Jr. missing a few games, potentially returning during the season, or however that process plays out. We're going to get better clarity on that situation. But hypothetically speaking, let's say Jaren Jackson Jr., they're going to say, he's going to miss the first 5 games of the season. Not a really hard schedule. I think that's manageable, even without Jaren Jackson Jr. throw Santi Aldama in the starting lineup. You're going to get double-digit scoring, probably some decent rebounding, and you're going to get a lot of three-point shots, as we just said in the last segment. But Santi comes out of the game. Who's the next power forward? Who's going to be that next guy that's going to play the 4 for the Grizzlies? There isn't really one answer here. And this is one of those things. Let me know what you guys think in the comments as well on YouTube. Let me know what you guys think about this equation. But here's the thing for me. I want to start it off by saying I don't want to see Brandon Clark playing that spot unless you got a 5 that's willing to shoot the ball from three-point range. In other words, I don't want to see Brandon Clark playing alongside of Jock Landale unless Landale is shooting 2 3-point attempts per game. If there's a floor stretching ability on the offensive end, I don't want to see him clogging the paint, Jock Landale clogging the paint with Brandon Clark. It's going to be too much, and the numbers have proven that's been ugly in the past. That's why Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. work so well, because there's a yin to the yang with those two. But when you put Brandon Clark on the floor with Steven Adams in the past, Xavier Tillman, the numbers aren't good. It has not been good. It's hard for the Grizzlies guards, and it's hard for the Grizzlies bigs to really generate any type of chemistry when those are put out there. So I don't want to see Brandon Clark at that spot. Play Brandon Clark at the 5 in that small ball role. Keep having a lot of fun. No Cedric Howard yet either. And I say yet because throw Cedric Howard on the wing, let him get his feet wet, let him learn the NBA, because he's gonna be a good rebounder. I have no doubt about that. He's gonna be a guy who you can throw at the 4 in a pinch. If you want to play him at the 4, you probably even start him at the 4 eventually as he fills out into more of what people call the grown man body or whatever the case may be. Like, he'll be a guy that you could throw out there yet, but not yet too much. I want to see him playing the 3. I want to see him on that wing. I want to see him pump faking at the 3-point line, take that one dribble, shoot that mid-range shot. That's what I want to see Cedric Howard working on earlier in his career. So who? Who's left to play the 4 if Santi's in foul trouble, Jaren Jackson Jr. is in foul trouble, or the injury situation? 2 names stand out to me. It's guys I want to see at that spot. Number 1 is GG Jackson. GG Jackson has the athleticism. If you ask me, if you ask my co-host Joe Monex, I think I can speak for Joe right here because we've talked about it and we've said it on the show. Shout out to Everydayers because you already know what I'm about to say. GG Jackson is better at the 4 than he is at the 3. The 3 kind of allows him to be this big, jumbo wing where he kind of gets more into his Paul George type of bag, right? But when he's at the 4, his quickness comes into play, right? And he's playing guys that aren't, as agile and things like that. Like you see a little bit more of the wiggle that makes him stand out, the talent that makes him stand out. But what you got to see more from GG Jackson for that 4 to kind of be something that the Grizzlies are going to be confident in him playing is defensively. He's going to have to improve. We talked about that a lot, so no need to hash more on that. The rebounding, like he's a great athlete. He's going to have to consistently snag boards. GG is 6'9". He's put on some weight. He can jump. Go get the boards. Go get the rebounds. And you put those 2 things into play, I think GG Jackson will be playing the 4. Another guy that comes to mind is John Conchar. A little bit smaller, really good athlete. He's going to be able to shoot the 3-point ball from the 4 spot. John Conchar is one of those guys that does a lot of the little things, and you can do the little things at the 4 and be a really good player. It works for a lot of NBA teams right now. See Denver Nuggets, Aaron Gordon does a lot of the little things at a very, very, very high level. They won a championship because of it. Not saying John Conchar is Aaron Gordon by any means. I always got to throw that out there because sometimes people run with these things, man. Sometimes people just run with them. But with John Conchar, that's another guy. I think GG Jackson, John Conchar are 2 of the guys. If Jaren Jackson Jr. is missing time early in the season, if there's a stretch, any point where you say, we don't got Santi or Jaren, or, foul trouble tends to come up with a guy like Jaren over the course of his career. GG Jackson, John Conchar are 2 guys that I expect to factor in to the equation of being the next power forwards. Who do you think should be the next power forward? Let me know what you guys think as well. But appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. And remember, guess what? College football is already back in action. So, and it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff. your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Make sure you go check that out as well. Continue to check out Locked On Grizzlies, as next week we'll continue to talk about what's going on with Santi Aldama in the EuroBasket and many more other things going on with the Grizzlies roster as well. But as always, appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. And remember, Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.